everything that you've been doing, I'm saying to everybody that's listening, because if you're listening to this, there's a reason why you're listening to this, and this is the message that you need to hear. There is a reason why you've been through everything that you've been through, why you've developed yourself, why you've chosen the paths that you've chosen, because you are getting ready to be called to a bigger role in the world. And big is relative.
Yeah, big is we're not saving the whole world, but we may be there for our neighbors and the people who needs us and
Yeah.
when they need us. And that's big.
Yeah.
It's
It's huge. And also, sorry, I'm just feeling this again very strongly, is that even if you are watching this and you're not a practitioner or anything like that, it doesn't matter. Your consciousness, your level of consciousness, if you're listening to this podcast, if you're interested in the things that we're talking about, it is because you're evolved to a certain level, that you're holding a certain frequency. So everyone that's listening to this, if you do nothing else, you do those 2 anchors that I talked about, you take some time to breathe, you show up in the world with peace and love and compassion. This is quantum physics. This is not woo-woo. You are showing up, and that energy, your frequency, is contributing to the frequency of the whole. And that is more important than I think any of us really realize.
I love that you brought that. We're talking as one of the topics, perhaps love and compassion. And there was a statistic that the person I interviewed in the past episode from My Spiritual Butterfly sent on a mailing about in some towns, literally, when people met a threshold of people meditated peacefully, the crime rate went down like close to 20%. So there is even studies that demonstrate that. And I think sometimes like, how can I help the world is overwhelming by just creating peace within yourself and trying to bring it as much as you can outside. Not every day. Doesn't mean if one day you're angry, the world is going to destroy days on you, because we're like that extreme sometimes. But any moment of peace that you can do that. And if you also go to that space, you're going to realize there are other people doing the same. And
Yes.
sometimes at night I meditate and I just go into my space of light. I'm not sending, doing, and
Yep.
I can feel the connection of other people who are sitting in the space too, right? So, and
1,000%.
that is also very comforting, very supportive. So I love how simple it is, because there is very little we can do beyond that, to be honest, right?
This is like, are you gonna go stop the bombs over in Iraq? Like what can we do? So that's why you got to pay attention with what you're feeding, what you're
Yeah.
getting consumed with, because, and that's a whole other separate conversation about being distracted and about the powers that be wanting to take you out of yourself,
Yeah.
because you're more manipulated and controlled that way. So the more that you can stay in your body, stay connected to yourself, create as much peace and a level of frequency just within yourself, within your own little world, that ripples out. And it's like it makes like the force field harder for like the negative stuff to get in. It can't take
Yeah.
a hold if there's more peace. And also, like, I don't know if you know David Hawkins, Dr. David Hawkins. He was a famous psychologist and author of all this stuff. You can Google David Hawkins. But I actually have a little video on my Instagram, and he talks about, like, because this was like in the 90s or something, he was talking about how, like, a fisherman, right? If a fisherman is just having like a blissful, like peaceful experience, like on a lake in like Minnesota or whatever, and he's just like just blissed out with his like little fishing pole, he says, you don't understand that level of peace and beauty, how that's affecting a kid with AIDS in Africa.
Oh,
And then
wow.
that kids with AIDS in Africa has hope and feels a bit of joy and feels a bit of lightness. So it's really interesting. So that I don't think we understand the power that we actually have.
I love that. I would love to end the podcast on that, but I do end every podcast on an oops